Okay, let's dive in. Today we're going to be talking about a Web3 publication platform called Mirror. Mirror.xyz is their domain. You can go visit the project there. Again, that's mirror.xyz. So quick rundown on it. Before I get into it, I'll do a quick summary so that you got some takeaways even 60 seconds in. So here you go. So you may have heard the term Web3. Web3 is a kind of the next generation of the internet, which we'll get into. It's a Web3 publication platform that offers a bunch of things, but the main thing is it offers a platform to actually publish articles. Think of like a Medium or with a Notion like editing interface, Medium like editing interface, allows you to publish on the blockchain so that you don't have to rely on Mirror to keep functioning for your published articles to persist. They're stored on Arweave, which is a storage blockchain where you can store arbitrary data. And even if Mirror goes away, and even if the people that have built this project go away, your article will persist. And furthermore, other people can come and can fill the void there. And that's really important for publishers, that they know that they can trust the platform, and that if that platform goes away, something else can replace it in the future and their content will not go away. We'll dive into exactly what that means, but they also offer some other tools, crowdfunding tools. They have an auction tool. They have this splits feature and this token race thing. So they're doing a lot of cool stuff. One of the partners at A16Z who left founded it. Now they've raised money from A16Z and Union Square Ventures. They're rumored to be valued at about $100 million. Very exciting project in the space. Boom. That's the rundown. Okay, let's dive in. So it's founded by Denis Nazarov. Like I said, previous partner at A16Z. With funding from both A16Z and Union Square Ventures, as I said, where Fred Wilson is a partner. He has a blog called AVC. I think it's avc.com, where he writes a lot of writes every weekday and sometimes on the weekends is what he says. He has a lot of great short little posts that he'll, just his musings on what's going on. I think he's got a great thing going on there. So they launched in Mirror.xyz, just Mirror. They launched in December 2020 with their publishing product. So they've since announced other things, but that was originally what their goal was, just the publishing product, or rather that was their the first goal they wanted to tackle. And recently it just became open to public access. So anyone can now, and I just tried it today, as of today, damn, I always forget the date. As of today though, I think October 5th or something like that. As of today, it's now October 5th, 2021. It's now available for anyone to post. Before you had to actually be a holder of a right token, but now anyone can use the tool and post. Now, I'd encourage you, if you've never used a cryptocurrency, if you've never done anything with cryptocurrency, I invite you to try this out, because this one, unlike most, it doesn't cost anything. For some reason, there's no fees right now, and I was in the Discord channel trying to figure out why there are no fees to actually publish on the platform, but there aren't any. So I encourage you, you can the easiest thing is probably use the Chrome browser, use the MetaMask extension, create an Ethereum wallet, go to mirror.xyz and connect your wallet and publish. Now, you can publish an article. Publish a post. Think of it like a Medium, an Instagram, or a Twitter. You can publish content for free. And you're actually connecting a wallet, and you're taking part in this kind of wild west of the Web3 world. So let's take a step back quickly. I know I jumped right into it, but let's take a quick step back on just what is Web3? What does that mean? How does it relate to cryptocurrency, blockchain? A lot of people are actually starting to just, instead of say cryptocurrency or blockchain, they're just going to say they're just starting to say Web3, which I don't know. We never said Web 2. Well, we kind of did. O'Reilly, the book publisher, forget his first name, but he had an epic blog post where he talked about what Web 2 was. But you didn't hear regular consumers talk about Web 2. So people say, don't say cryptocurrency, don't say blockchain. We got to start building it as Web 3. Regular consumers don't give a shit. Consumers didn't say Web 2 when we were talking about the Googles, the Twitters, the Facebooks of the world. They just use the product. So I guess with people in the know, it helps to just call it Web 3 because it's bigger than cryptocurrency. It's bigger than blockchain. It's kind of an all-encompassing thing there. But a quick step back, and I've talked about this before, actually, my Visa Universal Payment Channel podcast just a few episodes ago. I talked about the difference between Web 1 versus Web 2. But generally, Web 1 is when the internet first started. You had a bunch of computers connected on the network or on the internet, and there are different. You could and you could still do this today. You set up a server, you hosted your content, people came to your website and viewed your content. It was pretty distributed. It was distributed. People had to run their own servers, and it was pretty much read only. Like you'd go to a web page and you'd read something. You wouldn't post a comment to it. Now Web 2 was bidirectional. So not only were you reading content, think your Wikipedias of the world. That's reading. And now there's some Web 2 stuff there because you can edit it and comment and stuff like that. So that's actually kind of a bad example. But think Web 2, your Instagrams, your Twitters, where you're not just going to a website, but you're actually taking part in that website experience. You're actually adding to the website. You're adding comments, you're adding likes, etc. You're publishing it yourself. And also what's a big part of Web 2 was centralization of the internet in big cloud providers, your Microsofts, your Googles, your Amazons. So that's something that a lot of people have problem with. This the Web 1, it was supposed to be this beautiful wide open world of this is the internet, anyone can publish, and famously there's that quote about the internet views censorship as damage and routes around it, which Web 2 proved that that's actually not really true. I mean it's kind of true, but the Great Firewall of China and there's plenty of countries that are absolutely just blocking websites, blocking apps. The App Store and Google Play. It's very easy now, as Ben Thompson talks about. It's very easy now for oppressive regimes, rather than have to build up this entire infrastructure to delete, to block websites. They can just tell Apple, send them a whatever that legal document is. I don't know, a warrant, whatever, a demand to actually just remove apps. And a big part of what people do on the internet today is on their phones and is through apps. So, and who runs those centralized apps, those app stores? Your Apples and your Google, Apple and Google. So it's an interesting. So that's Web 2. Web 3 I think can be thought of as the power of Web 2 with the kind of the beauty of Web 1, where you're back to owning your own data and being in control of your own data. So it doesn't mean that you store your article that you post on a computer in your room, right? We're not talking about that. But we're talking about the beauty is Web 3 allows these decentralized networks. So I talked about Arweave. There's another one called Filecoin. There's these blockchains that allow you to actually store data on them. So Ethereum allows you to store data, but it's not really meant to store files, right? It's more meant to store. It's a smart contract platform, not a blockchain that's meant for actually storing videos and images. Now you can, in a smart contract, you can have a link to a file, right? But it's not meant for actually holding. It would be very, very expensive to actually store a video or a bunch of text on the Ethereum blockchain. So there's other blockchains like Filecoin, which is meant for arbitrary file storage, and then things like Arweave, which is what Mirror actually uses, both Arweave and Filecoin, that allows you to store data on them. There's another called IPFS, which Interplanetary File System, which they are decentralized. They're decentralized tools, which means there's not one person, there's not one company, there's not a CEO that runs them. There's a bunch of miners that can join the network and can store data and be compensated for storing that data. So when you post a file to Filecoin or Arweave or IPFS, you have to compensate. Not always. They're a little different. They have different schemes. At Arweave right now, when you post on Mirror, you don't pay a fee, and I don't know how that is. Again, I asked in the Discord why that was, and no, I haven't gotten an answer back yet. But it's very different than posting to Twitter or posting to Instagram. Someone can just report that content. The centralized server, Twitter can decide to take it down. Instagram can decide to take it down. And famously, I use this example a lot. There are a lot of people early on in Twitter that, well, I'll get to that later. Actually, I'll get to that later. But not only do you not own that data, but it's very possible, well, not very possible, it's possible Twitter will be gone in 20 years. It's possible that they could arbitrarily delete things that you put on there. But these decentralized networks, there's not really a means to do that. There's not a means to do that. So there's there's this Web3 is all this Web3 movement is all about kind of giving power back to the user, not these centralized data repositories. So let's. I'm just going to give the kind of the statement. If you go to mirror.xyz, they have a little statement. I want to read it. So they say, we're writers. We always have been and always will be since the dawn of time. By whatever tools were at our disposal, it has been an integral part of life and progress to record our ideas. That human necessity has not changed. What has changed is the way our writing is distributed, interpreted, applied, and valued. Mirror is the next big change in the long history of symbolic communication. Through a decentralized, user-owned, crypto-based network, Mirror's publishing platform revolutionizes the way we express, share, and monetize our thoughts. That's another big piece of this, is monetization, and we'll get into that. So they're doing a bunch of things, like I said, crowdfunding, auctions, NFT edition, that's one of their things, splits, and they have a governance product. So with their publishing product, you can think of any blogging tool like Medium or even Twitter. You log in and they own your authentication. If Twitter wants to boot you off, they can boot you off whenever they want. There's nothing that you can do to stop that. With this tool, you actually log in with an Ethereum wallet. Now, there's no means by which your wallet can be taken from you. That is something that realistically you have locally on your machine. You have a passphrase to access your wallet. It's not stored on a centralized server. You have the passphrase. Only you can access it. So part of this is authentication. You sign in with credentials you control. The stuff you publish, as I said, is stored is on decentralized storage and stored there forever. You can actually exit the platform. This is important if you want. So the data isn't stored there. So you can leave the platform. Someone could theoretically, if Mirror starts doing things that the users don't like, they can actually take their data that they've published on Mirror, and they can put a different front end and build it on top of Mirror and take all their data with them and build a new service on top of that data, because your data is not going anywhere. Mirror separates your authentication, as I described. It's an Ethereum wallet address that Mirror does not own. They don't own your authentication, and the actual storage of the content that you publish is not owned by Mirror as well. That is owned by, stored on a decentralized service. Another thing, I pulled a quote here. Online publishing drives enormous engagement, but has been notoriously difficult to monetize in sustainable ways. Because Mirror is built on Ethereum, it natively supports new crypto-native business models around tokens and NFTs, and we'll get into that. Also, as I said, devs don't need permission to build on top of Mirror. With Twitter, you need access to their API to get the data. Instagram, Facebook, you need access to their API. Because Mirror is built on decentralized tech, on Web3 tech, there's no permit. You don't need permission. A developer can build on top of it. A company can build on top of it. Anyone can start a Mirror competitor tomorrow, and lift a lot of what they have, because they don't have the data. The data's not stored in servers that they own. It's all decentralized and public, and not owned by Mirror. So what they do is, there's a little bit of when you actually do a post, and I did a post. It takes a little while. I posted a test one, and it takes a little while. They actually had a bug when I click submit. They've since fixed. I haven't tested it, but when you click submit, nothing happens. So I kept clicking submit. It would go show loading, then show the submit. So of course my first hello world thing that I posted the same thing 10 times. But what it does do, when you actually post it, and the way they talk about it is it shows up immediately, but then in the background, it's actually getting posted to Arweave. Now, I don't exactly know how the tech works there. How can they show it immediately, but it's not available on Arweave yet? Because Arweave, without getting too much into it, Arweave, it takes a little while for it to propagate on the Arweave network, which is where the content's actually stored. So I think they mirror it somehow for a temporary period of time. I don't know the technical details of that, but ultimately it ends up on Arweave. That's what you need to know. Within a few minutes. It's not on the order of days. They also have a right token that they plan on using for governance. So, and this is what I said I was going to talk about Twitter. Imagine if the early users of Twitter received equity, received literally stock in Twitter. Now, and that makes a lot of sense. The people that were first on Twitter, that were first evangelizing it, that were using the product and actually telling people to get on it and actually publishing on it. Where did that value go? It went all to Twitter. It went all to Twitter and Twitter shareholders. It did not go to the users. Now, certainly you can monetize. You can gain a bunch of followers on Twitter and start a newsletter and gain a following and make money that way. Sure, but that is it's not a direct compensation for you building up the Twitter network. So they have a right token. Mirror does, where that will actually not only will that accrue value likely in the future, but it also gives you governance. It also gives you governance over the platform. So you can actually, and they haven't rolled this out yet. They've rolled out the token, but they haven't rolled out the governance yet. But you can imagine a system. There's other blockchain apps that have Compound Finance is a decentralized finance app built on Ethereum. They have the comp token, which allows any comp holder to actually vote on proposals and change the product. And comp doesn't have the keys. And I imagine, meaning they don't have the keys, meaning if they wanted to, they couldn't take control back from the users. Now, granted, early investors and the owner have most of the governance tokens, sure, but they can sell them. And there's also community members that can buy them on an exchange, and also and you also earn the token when using Compound Finance, in the same way that you earn right by using the platform. So we'll see how their governance, we'll see what happens with their governance, but it's a really interesting model. So I'm going to get into a few of their things here. I want to keep this episode nice and tight. A few of the things that they offer. So they also offer a crowdfunding tool. Think of GoFundMe. So you can crowdfund anything, and then those tokens, you get tokens in reward for your crowdfunding, and those give you, as an example, they give some examples. That can give you access to member-only spaces, and it can also give you governance access. So member-only spaces, think exclusive content for early backers, and governance, think of you can vote on proposals and help steer what the project what it works on, it could be anything. What a writer, what kind of things a writer talks about. What I say on what I talk about on my podcast. Imagine if I issued a bunch of governance tokens, and people could vote on what is the next topic that I discuss. And maybe I have 50% of the tokens because I want a big say, but maybe the rest of the tokens are spread out among everyone else, or maybe I have 25%. It's just an example. It's an interesting thing here, and I just want to say, this is a bit pie in the sky right now. I'll be straight up. I'm not saying like this is here now, but I love the experimentation. It's very interesting. The internet is so powerful. We're just scratching the surface. I'm really excited to see what happens here. So some of this stuff I think is, a few people are using it right now, and they're raising funds, and they've actually raised over 1,700 ETH raised via crowdfunding. That's about $5.1 million. That was over that. So that at the time of when they published this article, the crowdfunding article, which I think was a little while ago. But they also have, they have a 2.5% fee across all their economic tools, including their crowdfunding tool, which actually routes money from that to they have a DAO treasury to fund the Mirror platform itself. It's really interesting. And Vitalik Buterin actually has an excellent post on Ethereum, or on his personal blog post, on his personal blog talking about Ethereum. And he was actually one of the writers, I think, that got granted access to Mirror before it was given public access. But he talked about how the fact, you look at how much miners on the Ethereum network or any blockchain, how much miners are actually getting compensated, millions of dollars a day. And a very small fraction, there's no mechanism to actually fund development of Ethereum itself. Now, certainly people are rallying around it and funding it, and Vitalik had a bunch of, I think they had, when they sold the initial Ether tokens, when they were bootstrapping the network, they certainly had some to, they held on to some so that they could fund research and development. But as far as ongoing, there's not a means to do that. So it's an interesting problem. So they automatically raise funds as you use their tools. That goes to a DAO treasury that one day, if you're a right token holder, you'll be able to route where that money goes. Maybe it goes to a developer helping update the platform. Maybe it goes to a product manager. Maybe it goes to, you could think anything. And it's just the sky's the limit with these things. Very interesting. So, okay, they also have an auctions tool, which is very interesting. There's an organization called Mint Fund, which raised money on Mirror crowdfunding to build an auction tool. And then what's interesting is, and I don't know what the backroom deals were, but Mirror then took ownership, obviously with Mint Fund's cooperation, and reviewed the auction tool that they made, that they used Mirror to crowdfund. They built an auction tool, and Mirror then worked with them, improved it, and took ownership of that auction tool. So it's an interest. That's just an interesting kind of thing. This community, there's a lot of that type of stuff going on. It's like there's a lot of really passionate, really exciting people in this space. They're all working together. Famously, there's been white hat hackers that have stolen funds and then given them back, multi-million-dollar heists, and then given them back because they exploited a weakness in a contract, in a particular blockchain contract. So, and then they've given the funds back. So it's an interesting world, and it's really cool to be here right now in this space watching it, because I really think the sky's the limit here. It's really gonna be interesting stuff. They also have something called additions to mint several identical NFTs. So you can imagine you can do things to reward early buyers of them. So they have an easy tool that, let's say I can mint 1,000 no gradient NFTs. And the first few users that buy it have a special version of that NFT, and then the next set of people get a version that's not as rare. There's more. Maybe there's 20 of those minted. Then the next batch there's 100 of those minted, and I can use it to raise funds for publishing content. So there's just an interesting, and it's crazy the amount of things they've actually released. It's not just a publishing tool, it's just crazy. And I love it. They're throwing things against the wall. And some of it's probably not going to work, but it's a beautiful thing. They also have something called splits, which, imagine you crowdfund something. You crowdfund like, I'm going to crowdfund I'm going to release a new episode and I want to crowdfund. I need to raise, $100 to do it. But there's also people that inspired the episode that I want to work on. They have a way to do splits. So when the auction finishes, I can route money to a bunch of other wallet addresses. So not just my own, but maybe 80% goes to me, but then 2% goes here, 2% goes to a charity, 2% goes to this person that helped me, a designer, 2% help, someone that designed design the content that, or the music on my podcast, whatever. The sky's the limit. You can automatically set that up. Now, sure, there's ways you can do this, and right now with tools, just say, okay, I'll get $100 and then I'll disperse it. You can put that in a contract, and then if someone doesn't give you your 2%, you can sue them. Yeah, that's timely, that's expensive, and that's a pain in the ass. With this, just you specify the wallet address when the auction goes live, and you have control over the wallet address, and boom, you'll get the funds. It's a very, very interesting way of doing things. So. And I want to pull a quote from them. They said, if Web 2 is about social graphs, where a tagged photo connects each participant who attended last night's dinner party, Web 3 is about economic graphs, connecting entities whose influence is baked into a work. Who originally gifted you your... Web 3 is economic graphs, connecting entities whose influence is baked into a work. So I think it's really interesting. So the Web 3 stuff is not only about owning your data, or putting it on a platform that it can't be censored, can't be taken down, and that you can trust that you can do whatever you want with it later. It's also about getting compensated for your work. There's kind of the crypto Web3 world, payment is built in. It's not like an added thing, like, oh, we're going to add credit card payments. No, it's part of it. That's what it is. So it's it's built in the platform, so it allows you to do all these interesting things. And further, they say, who originally gifted you your Finite and Infinite Games paperback? Who's always been there to lend their opinion or retweet your post? Who appeared in your dream last night? Which charity do you feel could benefit from your work? This is just an example of splits. So some ideas to think about, like if I posted something on the book Finite Infinite Games, who's the one that even told me to read it? Why don't I compensate them in an easy way? Boom, add their wallet address. Boom, done. Very interesting stuff. So they also have this token race tool, and this is the last one, and then we'll be wrapping up soon because we're at 23 minutes already. You can curate membership of a DAO like the right token. So they have this token race. It's a tool that allows you to release tokens in your network. So you can curate membership of a DAO, just like the right token's doing, curating list of proposals for a DAO, distributing funds for a governance program. So it's a way to actually, you might think about, okay, how can I actually issue tokens to my users? How would I go about doing that? Well, they have a tool that gives you a way to do that, to bootstrap your community. So maybe I would use it to, I don't know the details of it, so I'm a little shaky, but an example would be maybe, I don't know, the first week, I'll issue 2 tokens for whoever shares my content. Whoever shares no gradient shares it out. I'll issue them a right token, I'll issue them a no gradient token, which will be actually pretty interesting to play with. And then guess what? The people that share my content, shouldn't they get a say in what I do, and shouldn't they get compensated for that? Now, the way it accrues value, maybe no one wants to buy a no gradient token because it's not worth anything. But what if this show became huge? And what if that governance token, people would pay a lot of money because they wanted to influence what I said. Now, sure, I could just not listen People could vote on, say, oh, I want you to talk about Facebook next episode, and I could just not listen and talk about whatever I want. Sure, but wouldn't that would also hurt that would hurt my community? That'd be shooting myself in the foot a little bit. So it's just an interesting. Again, I'm shooting from the hip here. It's just, I urge you not to just turn your nose up at this stuff right away, because everything, all great tech, it all starts out like, this is a toy. Who's gonna use this? Now, there's a lot of tech that starts like that and it never goes anywhere. So just because I'm not saying it's automatically going to be successful, but just know that this is how a lot of the times tech starts. So it's just, be mindful of that. Another interesting thing, I saw a tweet recently that I'll kind of wrap up here. Your wallet is your resume. Your Ethereum wallet's your resume, because it shows which projects you're part of. It shows what you voted on. It shows what tokens you hold. Now, the issue with using a wallet as your resume, it could also show a lot of what you do. It's the blockchain. It's the Ethereum blockchain. It shows there's a record of everything you do. So I have a bunch of different wallets so that people can see all the things that I do. So that's just an interesting thing to think about. So rather than here's my resume on LinkedIn, which someone could lie about, they could write whatever they want, or they could embellish it. What about, here's my wallet. Look at all this shit I've been a part of the last several years. Look at all the things I've voted on. Look at all the projects I've been a part of. It's an interesting thing, and you're actually a part of it. There's proof right there. And granted, someone could give you a wallet and say that it was you, but it's a step in the right direction. So it's an interesting thing to think about. But I look at, and just to wrap up here, it's interesting because there's a lot of the people I follow and get my news from, Benedict Evans, Peter Zeihan, Ben Thompson. I get a lot of, I'm sure a lot of people you follow on Twitter have YouTube channels that you follow, MKBHD on YouTube, for example. It's amazing. 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, maybe most of your tech news was from Wired, not MKBHD. Maybe most of your general news on technology was the New York Times technology section. It wasn't an individual, but individuals are so powerful, and they can do so much that this new economy, granted, there's ways in the Web2 economy to accrue value with, newsletter. You can which famously a lot of people do. There's a company called Substack built on that model, where you can accrue value. But this throws kerosene on that. This just throws jet fuel onto the fire to allow people to do that. So I think it's a really interesting. We are what was it, in 2002 or something? Time magazine released the Person of the Year, and it was just a reflective thing, and it was you, and which I thought is one of the most all-time great covers, because they called it you. It's we. It's people have so much power right now. Look, I'm fucking about to release a episode. Not many people are going to listen to it. Maybe some will, but billions have the potential to listen to it. That technology did not exist, 30 years ago. Anyone now who goes on YouTube, who listens to the podcast, who has access to podcasts, can listen to this. That's an incredible amount of power to individuals. And we're just starting to grapple with this shit. We're just starting to grapple with the power, both the good and the bad, and what that means. So I appreciate you all taking the time. We were just talking about Mirror. Find more about them on mirror.xyz. It's an epic product. I wish their team the best of luck. Love seeing cool shit going on in the space. My name is Dick Lucas. You can find this podcast wherever podcasts are available. Just search No Gradient. You can find all these episodes on YouTube as well. You can follow on Twitter. I'll have a link in the show notes. The podcast on YouTube. I have a link to my YouTube channel in the show notes of this episode. Also follow me on Twitter, Dick C. Lucas. You can email me at dick@nogradient.com if you have any opinions. Also follow on Instagram, Dick C. Lucas. I'll post there just a photo of and a little description of what the latest episode that I was covering, what I was riffing on. Okay, thank you so much. Best of luck in your team. Thanks everyone for following along, and right on, shit, man.